When investigators finally began to understand the nature of what they were dealing with, the case shifted direction entirely. This was no longer about Hollywood, no longer about celebrity lifestyles, no longer about drugs, jealousy, or personal grudges. It was about control. And at the center of it all was a man who never held a knife, never entered the house on Cielo Drive, and yet seemed to have orchestrated everything. Charles Manson. The group surrounding Manson referred to themselves simply as the family. They lived on the margins of society, in abandoned buildings, desert ranches, and remote areas far from traditional authority. To the outside world, they appeared disorganized, harmless, even naive. Inside the group, the reality was very different. Manson exercised complete psychological control. He positioned himself as a prophet, a philosopher, and a guide to a coming transformation. He spoke in riddles, borrowed heavily from music, religion, and apocalyptic imagery, and repeated his ideas until they became truth to his followers that he did not command, that he convinced. Those who followed him believed they were acting freely, even when they were not. This distinction would later become one of the most important aspects of the case. Investigators struggled at first to understand the motive behind the murders. There was no personal connection between Manson and the victims at Cielo Drive. Some of the attackers had never even heard their names before that night. The motivation was symbolic. Manson believed society was on the brink of collapse. He spoke of an impending apocalyptic conflict, a war he claimed would erase the existing world and allow his followers to rise from the ashes. The murders, according to this belief system, were meant to accelerate that collapse. They were not acts of revenge. They were acts of manipulation, by choosing a high-profile location and victims associated with fame and influence. The crimes were designed to create maximum fear, confusion, and media attention. Cielo Drive was selected not because of who lived there, but because of what the address represented. One of the most disturbing elements of the investigation was the behavior of the individuals who carried out the crimes. When questioned, some showed no remorse. Others appeared detached, as if recounting events that had happened to someone else. They spoke of Manson's words with reverence. They believed they were part of something larger than themselves. For detectives, this raised a chilling realization. The danger was not just one man. The danger was the system of belief he created. One of the greatest challenges prosecutors faced was proving Manson's responsibility. He was not physically present at the Cielo Drive murders. He left no forensic evidence. He did not wield the weapons. Yet witnesses consistently described him as the architect. This forced investigators to pursue a theory that was, at the time, legally complex and risky. That words alone could be as lethal as weapons. Prosecutors had to demonstrate that Manson's influence was so complete that his followers acted as extensions of his will. To do that, they relied heavily on testimony from within the family. The case finally gained momentum when one former follower agreed to cooperate fully. With authorities, her testimony provided insight into the internal structure of the group, how decisions were made, how loyalty was enforced, and how dissent was punished. She described psychological conditioning, sleep deprivation, isolation, and constant reinforcement of Manson's worldview. Most importantly, she placed Manson at the center of every major decision. Without him, the murders would not have occurred. This testimony transformed the investigation from circumstantial to cohesive. For the first time, the narrative made sense as evidence mounted. Arrests followed. Members of the family were taken into custody, some resisting, others seemingly relieved. Manson himself was arrested multiple times for unrelated charges before finally being formally linked to the murders. His behavior during custody was erratic. At times, he appeared calm and charismatic. At other times, hostile and unpredictable. He mocked the process. He spoke in cryptic statements. He seemed to enjoy the attention. For investigators, it was clear that the courtroom would be just another stage. The trial became one of the most closely watched legal proceedings in American history. Media coverage was relentless. Every gesture, every word, Every reaction was scrutinized. Manson attempted to disrupt the process repeatedly. He carved symbols into his forehead, interrupted testimony, and tried to intimidate witnesses. His followers mirrored his behavior, appearing in court dressed similarly, displaying absolute loyalty. It was a performance meant to reinforce his power. But this time, it failed. Rather than focusing on graphic details of the crimes, prosecutors focused on control. They demonstrated patterns of manipulation. They exposed contradictions in Manson's philosophy. They showed how followers were conditioned to obey without question. Witness after witness described the same dynamic. Manson spoke. Others acted. This repetition was critical. The jury was not being asked to believe in supernatural influence or mind control, only in the power of persuasion combined with vulnerability. And slowly, the case came together. After months of testimony, the jury reached a decision. Charles Manson was found guilty, not as the hand that killed, but as the force that commanded. The verdict sent a message far beyond the courtroom. It established that leadership does not require physical presence to carry responsibility. That manipulation can be a form of violence. That ideology, when weaponized, can destroy lives. The Cielo Drive house did not remain standing. Years later, it was demolished, its address changed, an attempt to erase its association with the past. But history does not disappear that easily. The case left a permanent mark on American culture, law enforcement, and public consciousness. It reshaped how cults were investigated, how charismatic leaders were perceived, how responsibility was defined. Trust in the idea of harmless counterculture vanished. The innocence of the era ended. Decades later, the investigation remains a point of reference, not because of fame, not because of brutality, but because it revealed something deeply unsettling, that ordinary people can be convinced to commit extraordinary acts. That belief can override morality, that danger does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes, it whispers. The Cielo Drive investigation was not just about solving a crime. It was about understanding how influence works, how fear spreads, how responsibility is shared. It reminds us that the most dangerous weapons are not always visible, and that vigilance must extend beyond actions to ideas themselves. Silence before the shock. On the night of August 8, 1969, Los Angeles was quiet in a way that felt deceptive. The summer air was warm, the streets of Hollywood Hills calm, almost indifferent. From a distance, the city appeared unchanged, neon signs glowing softly, radios humming behind closed windows, parties drifting through open doors. But tucked away at the end of a narrow, winding road in Benedict Canyon, something irreversible was about to happen. At 10:50, Cielo Drive stood a large, secluded house. Hidden behind trees and hedges, it was invisible from the main road. The property had once belonged to French actress Michelle Morgan, but by 1969 it was rented by film director Roman Polanski and his wife, actress Sharon Tate. That night, Roman Polanski was in Europe working on a film project. Sharon Tate, 8 months pregnant, remained at the house with friends. By morning, Cielo Drive would become one of the most infamous addresses in American criminal history. But at the moment before everything changed, there were no sirens, no screams echoing across the hills, no warning signs visible to the outside world. Only silence. The discovery. Shortly after 8:30 a.m. on August 9, 1969, a housekeeper named Winifred Chapman arrived at the Cielo Drive property. She had been scheduled to work. That morning, as she approached the front gate, she noticed something strange almost immediately. A car sat parked near the entrance, not in its usual place. It appeared abandoned. Then she saw blood. It was everywhere. Terrified, Chapman ran to a neighboring house and called the police. Within minutes, officers from the Los Angeles Police Department were dispatched to the scene. When police entered the property, they encountered a crime scene unlike anything they had seen before. The house was covered in blood. Inside and outside, Evidence suggested extreme violence. Several victims were discovered in different locations around the property. The scale of the crime was overwhelming. Even veteran officers struggled to process what they were seeing. This was not a robbery gone wrong. This was not a crime of opportunity. This was something else. Initial confusion. In the early hours of the investigation, confusion ruled. Detectives struggled to determine how many suspects were involved, how they entered the property, and most importantly, why. There were no immediate signs of forced entry. No clear motive, no obvious suspect. The brutality suggested rage, yet nothing appeared to have been stolen. The victims were well-known, wealthy, and connected to Hollywood. But no ransom demands followed. At first, investigators considered the possibility of a drug-related crime. The late 1960s were marked by widespread drug use in the entertainment industry, and police were quick to assume a connection. This assumption would prove disastrous. Focusing on the victims rather than the perpetrators, investigators lost valuable time. The media followed the same narrative. Headlines speculated recklessness, excess, and scandal, turning victims into suspects in the court of public opinion. Meanwhile, the Real killers walked free, a city on edge. News of the murders spread rapidly. Hollywood was shaken. For years, celebrities had believed the hills offered protection. Distance from the chaos of the city below. Gated homes, private roads, security guards. The illusion of safety shattered overnight. Locks were upgraded. Guns were purchased. Security companies saw a sudden surge in demand. Fear moved through Los Angeles like a current. If this could happen here, it could happen anywhere. Yet for weeks, the case went nowhere. Leads dried up. Witnesses were scarce. Evidence was misinterpreted or overlooked. The LAPD was under immense pressure, both internally and from the public, and still, no arrests. A second crime changes everything. Then, the following night, another crime occurred on August 10, 1969, less than 24 hours after the Cielo Drive murders. A couple named Leno and Rosemary LaBianca were found murdered in their Los Feliz home. The similarities were impossible to ignore. The method, the messaging left behind, the sheer cruelty. Suddenly, investigators realized they were not dealing with an isolated incident. This was part of something larger. The question was no longer what happened at Cielo Drive, but who was capable of doing this twice at a break from an unexpected place. The breakthrough did not come from forensic brilliance or advanced technology. It came from jailhouse conversations. In the months following the murders, several individuals connected to a group known as the Family were arrested for unrelated crimes. While incarcerated, some began talking at first. Their stories sounded unbelievable. They spoke of a charismatic leader, of apocalyptic beliefs, of a coming race war, and slowly, details emerged that matched the crimes at Cielo Drive. Names surfaced, locations aligned, timelines connected. Investigators realized they had been looking in the wrong direction. This was not Hollywood excess. This was ideology. Charles Manson enters the picture. The name Charles Manson had appeared in police records before. A small-time criminal. A drifter. A cult leader to some, a con man to others. He did not fit the traditional image of a mass murderer. He was not physically imposing. He was not present at the crime scenes, and yet, every road seemed to lead back to him. Witnesses described his influence as absolute. Those around him obeyed without question. They believed they were acting on his will, even when he was not there. This concept challenged everything investigators thought they knew about criminal responsibility. How do you prosecute someone who never touched the weapon? Reconstructing the night as detectives rebuilt the timeline. A chilling picture formed. The attackers had arrived late at night. They had followed specific instructions. They left behind messages meant to confuse, provoke, and terrify. The randomness was intentional. The victims were chosen not for personal reasons, but for symbolic ones. Cielo Drive was not the target, it was a message, a case that changed policing. The Cielo Drive investigation forced law enforcement to confront uncomfortable truths. They had underestimated ideological violence. They had ignored early warning signs. They had dismissed witnesses who did not fit their expectations. By the time arrests were made, the damage was already done. The murders ended an era. The optimism of the 1960s, the belief in peace, love, and cultural revolution, collapsed under the weight of reality. Hollywood would never feel safe again.